continuing. We're still looking at the leadership of the People's National Party. Still with us, we have Anisha Phillips, councillor for the Papine Division, and political commentator Kevin O'Brien-Chang. Councillor Phillips, I want to pick up with you. You mentioned ahead of the break, I noted that you mentioned that the PNP president's leadership has been a little disappointing in your view. And I want to take up this matter of leadership. But I want to ask you, though, is it that the segment of the party that is still not accepting of the internal election outcome, you're giving Mr. Golding a hard time? Is that true?
Uneasy is the head that wears the crown, is how I'll start by responding to you. Let me just say this. It is incumbent on the person who assumes the reign of any political party to ensure that he moves with alacrity to bring together the factions. It doesn't matter if it's Jamaica, the United States, England, or wherever. The fact is, when you have different factions going up, disappointment will be there, residual. There will be residual disappointment. You have a duty, especially in a political climate like Jamaica, to ensure that you do everything within your power to bring all the players to the table. Everybody will not be in agreement at the same time, but you have to at least spearhead that effort. We have not seen that on the part of Mark Golding. Please do not point me to the Unity Committee.
Oh, what's the problem with the Unity Committee?
Hold on, because that was a farce by any definition. There is no genuine effort in my mind. And I don't think anyone is stupid either. You just need to look at the disposition of the leader, and it will tell you exactly the direction, and that spells trouble for the People's National Party.
What exactly are you expecting? You said that, you mentioned that it's a farce. What else could be done then? What are you expecting of the PNP president? How will he bring the factions together?
Well, at first instance, and that is a missed opportunity, by the way. So we're talking about retroactively now. How do we claw back some of what we would have lost? Because at first instance, what President Mark Golding ought to have properly done would have been to convene such a closed-door meeting that would have allowed for the kind of ventilation that, by the way, I suggested to the NEC prior to those elections would have become necessary if we had pursued the path that we went down. Nonetheless, the party went there. In the spirit of democracy, I accept that. Now, the duty on Mark Golding to have brought that closed-door meeting to bear to allow for the full and frank ventilation of the issues that would then set us on a path, at least, to some kind of reuniting, right? That did not happen. Now look at when you got resignation, the latest incident of some people with status, not just in the party, but in the country. What has been the response of the leader? I accept those resignations. Are you crazy? Okay, even if you were going to do so, what you would have needed at minimum would be for a joint statement to come from those outgoing vice presidents to say that, look, comrades, Jamaica, this is by no means dissatisfaction with the leadership, but this is an opportunity for the party to do X or Y. But for the leader to put out a statement, one, to suggest that he's refuting the reason or the basis given by those vice presidents, and then two, to put out another statement to say he accepts the resignation, that does not signal unity at all. And he's living in a fool's paradise.
Kevin O'Brien-Chang, I want to hear you. And what do you make of Mark Golding's management and leadership capabilities? Is he being undermined, or has he been given a fair chance, you think, by the comrades?
His position, he's the author of his own demise at this current situation. As Ms. Phillips said, exactly right. These are the four guys the delegates chose last time. They said they're resigning. You have to meet with them. These are the guys the public looks to and the prominent guys in the party. They just say, okay, go on and put up 2 councillors and 2 losing MP. Honestly, what the public is going to think? And Mr. Golding, he keeps making, to be blunt about it, stupid statements to the public. Look at, I mentioned the election thing. Look at the ivermectin. The WHO, the CDC in the US said ivermectin must only be used in tests, not given to patients or COVID. He comes to this, government must legalize ivermectin. Based on what? It was a crazy statement, and he's done a string of these. And if Mr. Golding was getting traction with the public, his party would start uniting around him, you know. But he keeps making statements making you wonder if he's in touch with reality. Mark Golding must check himself before anybody else. I don't know about undermining him at an insider, but I know from a public point of view, look at my nickname, Chaka. No, this is what the public is laughing, Chaka. He is a laughing stock right now.
But he was duly elected by the delegates of the People's National Party last year, Councillor Phillips.
Okay, so we operate in a democracy in the People's National Party. Whether or not I like the outcome of those elections is immaterial at this point. But as Kevin said, that, Comrade Golding needs to check himself. You are the one with the responsibility for projecting yourself to the people of Jamaica. You need to say to the people of Jamaica and to the disenchanted comrades, here is what I represent. This is the all-encompassing leadership that I'm bringing to the table. I am cognizant of all the challenges we face at this time, COVID and everything else considered. And I believe that I present those stable hands that Jamaica would need at this point. But no, instead of that, what you see is rancor. What you see is almost what appears, as your co-host said, as a purging of the party rather than a uniting. Mark Golding needs to be told, because I don't believe he realizes you cannot even contest an election with this kind of fractiousness. We have never been at this place before. And I dare anyone else who is whispering in its ears, because I've seen the comments from senior comrades who would say, oh, in 1978, we were here. We are in 2021, very different dispensation, very different lay of the land. In 1978, we talked ideology. We had ideological battles going on. In 2021, we are battling millennials, people who have high expectation levels, and correctly so. And Mark Golding is failing to actually put a PNP forward that the people of Jamaica can even have a glimmer of hope in. And that irritates me as one of the foot soldiers of the People's National Party, without apology.
Mr. O'Brien Chang, given what Councillor Phillips has just said, with friends like these within the party, does Mr. Golding have any need of enemies? And is there an actual message within the PNP that can actually resonate with the people of Jamaica? Or are we just going to look at 18 years within the wilderness, as happened to the JLP some years back?
Well, it's very worrying. Exactly. That's what we're looking at. One party rule. And somebody said to me, it's like two football teams with all the good players on one side. We don't want that in Jamaica. We want two strong parties. But I come back to the point. I don't want to undermine and all that. But I do know this. Mark Golding came when he was elected. People had high hopes. He's going to unite the party. He and his wife, she's a bright woman. And it's a blunt about it. He's white, she's black. But they come out, they can represent out of many. There's a lot of positives he could have gone with. But he keeps talking rubbish. I don't understand who's advising him. I don't know what's going on in his mind. My advice is take a holiday, Mr. Golding, with your family. Go abroad, don't talk for a month. Come back, clear your head. Look at what you have said in the past and see the rubbish you have talked. Start talking sense to the people. That's what the minimum the public wants now from the PNP is a sense of competence. They say the JP crumbles, a gigantic scandal, and we go to an election. The public has to go there and say, okay, the JP disgraced itself. The PNP can give us some competence. But right now, they look divided, incompetent, and a leader who looks totally out of touch with reality. It's very worrying if you value your democracy.
So, Councillor Phillips.
Where Andrew Hollis can go and do anything he wants, and he's going to win anyway because the PNP is so discredited with the people. And that's where we are now.
Councillor Phillips, I will see your Henry IV and raise you a Macbeth. With bare face, power sweep him from my sight. Now, I say that to say this. Mr. Paulwell had stated that his camp dropped out to allow Mr. Golding to have his team, and General Secretary Dr. Campbell then denied this and said that that was not the case. So my question to you is, which one of these individuals should we believe? And if so, does that not mean that you have high-ranking officials within your party bold-faced lying to the Jamaican public as to the state of their party?
I'll say this to you, regardless of the perception that has been attached to Comrade Philip Paulwell, and he's not someone who has enjoyed continuous support from me. So let me just clarify that. Regardless of how you view him in public space, I'll tell you this is one committed comrade who is always a seeker and a molder of consensus. And if Philip Paulwell is at the point where he believes that that decision taken by him was, the best in the interest of the party, what it would have meant would be that dialogue was almost impossible. What it would mean or it would have meant for us, is that there no middle ground could be found. Now that, for me, signals trouble, not just for the party, but for the country. Because we have a leader that you are going to ask me later on to sell to the people of Jamaica as someone who is capable of disagreeing with others and yet still be able to maintain sufficient balance to get the business of the country done. We have, at some point, I have to put my partisan feeling aside and I have to choose Jamaica. And so what I want in a leader is that kind of responsibility and stability that will allow us, because everybody will never agree with you. But as a leader, how you manage disagreements is going to be critical. What Mark Golding is showing to us right now as comrades within the National Party is something that is troubling to us, because if you cannot disagree with your leader, you have a dictator in that person. That's not where Jamaica is going in 2021. That's what Mark Golding represents. Expect opposition from me.
Kevin O'Brien-Chang, let's look on the path to renewal. It's a buzzword that has been used in the People's National Party repeatedly. So the path to renewal. What do you make of reports recently that there were calls from inside for Dr. Peter Phillips to return? And what about Lisa Hanna in this process of renewal? We haven't heard from her in a bit. You first, Kevin O'Brien-Chang, and then Councillor Phillips. Same question.
Well, Dr. Phillips was perhaps the least popular opposition leader ever. If you're going to go back to that, you must really be in bad trouble. Although I will admit that nobody thought Mr. Golding could do worse than Mr. Phillips, than Dr. Phillips. But so far he has. At least Dr. Phillips he made some statements I didn't agree with, but nothing that sounded plumb crazy. And Lisa Hanna, well, the point is, how I see it, Mr. Golding is not in the job a year. If they dump him now, it's going to be chaos. So I think he has to work with him, or the public, or the PNP. But I would plead with Mr. Golding again. Think back, sir. Look at the statements you have made. Go examine your statements. Realize that you're not making any sense. Start making, the first thing for renewal is make sense to the public as a leader. Show some rationale, some competence, some stability. You know, that the public, if you were to become prime minister, we could trust you, that you're in charge of the country. Right now, when Ms. Phillips is saying it, she is inside, and she said she couldn't, as a party, she couldn't send him to the Jamaican public. So that's where the biggest problem is, Mr. Golding himself, forget the inside, behind closed doors. Look at what is the public seeing from Mr. Golding and the PNP. That's a big thing. I don't business about inside things. I'm looking at Mr. Golding making crazy statements. A team of 2 losing MPs and 2 councillors. You can't give me some confidence. What about Julian Robinson or Michael Phillips, guys I can look up to? I want some people in the place I can look up to and say, yes, these guys that take the country over, I can live with it. Right now, it would be, how many Jamaicans in the middle of COVID would want to see this PNP, Mr. Golding and his team here, take over the country?
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have, and this is a conversation I would love to continue, because the fact that you have Councillor Phillips nodding in agreement with Chang tells you a lot that you need to know. Thank you both very much for your time. Appreciate it.